Hey there. Welcome to the Burning River Browns Talk. Happy Memorial Day weekend. Hope you guys are having a great weekend and a safe weekend. It is Sunday night. It is 9:30 Eastern Time. I'm here with you live right now. This, like I said, welcome to Burning River Browns Talk of the Fanatical Elves Network, a subsidiary of the Fans First Sports Network. Welcome. I appreciate each and every one of you. I am Lou Marconi at Marconi251 on Instagram, at El Marconi 1973 on X, just to complicate shit. That's what I like to do. So tonight I have a treat for you. It's a Sunday night. News is kind of slow. Tomorrow's a holiday, so I'm going to be cooking out on my grill with my family, going to the pool. The unofficial start of summer is here. With that, Brown season is going to be coming up very soon. Training camp is like 2 months away. All the fans are excited. There's some good news coming out of OTAs, updates on Chubb, everything else. So I tonight got you an exclusive interview that I recorded Friday morning with the Orange and Brown Report's own Jack Duffin. So sit back, relax. We're going to do that in 1 minute. But before we go any further, before we do anything else, I have to pause for a break from our sponsors. All right, we're back. Thank you very much for hanging tight. Okay, let me go ahead and get this all set up here because I got to share my screen. And we're going to do this. Yep, here it is. Boom. And let me play it. All right. Thank you very much. I am here. I am here for the Burning River Browns Talk. I am Lou Marconi at Marconi251 on Instagram. And to complicate things, I'm at Marconi1973 on X. I'm here with, from the Orange and Brown Report, Jack Duffin, at Jack Duffin on Twitter. Follow him in the Orange and Brown Report. We're going to talk Nick Chubb, and I'm even going to ask about Amari Cooper a little bit if we get him in. And I just want to understand the process. You had an article out recently predicting an extension. I want you to elaborate on that and kind of educate the audience on what you're seeing. Go right ahead, my friend.
Yeah, so I think the first thing worth starting with is timing. When might this happen? And the most comparable to the Nick Chubb situation we've seen involving Cleveland comes with Jack Conklin. So if we go back a couple of years, Jack Conklin was going into the third year of that first deal he signed with the team. And he had injuries. He gave back a third of his contract. And then they converted 2/3 into guarantees and a third became incentives. Then, he played well, had a good year. And then in the December, I believe it was the 26th or 28th, but it's late December, whatever it was, because I was out drinking, celebrating Christmas. So I know it was late December. They extended him, got 3 years, 45 million deal. And that's the contract he's currently on. So it's one that they've shown they're willing to do it. They don't have to wait all the way to free agency. But I think December's a realistic time frame. It was as well earlier December. Delpit got extended. It makes sense because you don't want to rush to a Nick Chubb extension, because if you do that, then you just don't know how he's going to come back. But if you push that off and you do that in December, you've seen the player he's most likely to be by then.
Yeah, so it's getting a good idea where he's at, what he's going to be doing. I personally think, and you can tell me if you disagree with this or not, that Nick Browns already know where he's at in his rehab. They're just not saying anything because they don't have to. Because he's there all the time in Berea. He's there in Berea rehabbing his knee. I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, I think they've got a really good feel for where he is in the rehab. It's just going to be when he's out on the field, can he cut the same way, everything like that, and how does his body hold up over time? Because if you're looking at it, he's going to be 30 towards the end of not this coming 2024 season, the 2025 season. So he's already at the age where you tend to see a running back decline once they hit 28. He's hit 28, so he's in that challenging period, let's call it, where some of these players aren't what they used to be. So And the painful thing when you're doing an extension, and to be fair, it's one of the things that was so important to the Pats dynasty, pay for what the player's going to do in the future. Doesn't matter if they've done great for you in the past. You're not paying them for the past. You're saying, if I give you decent money for the next 3 years, are you going to be a decent player for the next 3 years?
Right.
You could be a past Hall of Famer and have a Hall of Fame level career, but we're not paying you for a few years ago. We're paying you for the future, and that's
Similar,
tough.
it's similar to what they did with Jerry Judy. You're nodding. Yeah. Okay.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Jerry Judy, David Njoku is another great example. They did not
Exactly.
pay David Njoku for what David Njoku had done in the past. They projected what he's going to be forward, and he was mostly there in 2022, but in 2023 he was great, and
He had
that
a
was the
great year.
player they're paying for.
Yep. Absolutely. And I think, and if you remember, not too long ago, he wanted to leave, and they kept him.
Yeah.
So the fact that he's still here and he's happy. He's latest things I've heard, he's happy. I think also too, kind of walk me through this process of how he could start the season, because I told you before we started recording, Mary Kay Cabot recently reported that the plan is he's running, he's doing more in his rehab, and he's not gonna participate in mini camp or OTAs, which was expected, but he's gonna test the knee in training camp. Now, what that means exactly, I don't know how he means by testing it, but I think they wanted to see where he's at. Then they'll go from there, based on if there's any setbacks or not. Where do you see this going to start the year?
Yeah, so my natural gut says start him on what you'll call the reserve pup list, and that's basically
Mhm.
the pup list during training camp. So physically unable to perform, which is a fair classification for what he is. You couldn't throw him
Yeah.
out there and expect him to play now.
Hmm.
So leave him on that and give him as much time as he needs to make sure he's ready. So he wouldn't be able to get out there and get involved on the practice field. He'd be on the
Hmm.
side, maybe on a bike, all that stuff. He can still be around. He just can't be out there going for it. Um, and that way he can just develop and come back at his own speed. If when they cut to the 90-man roster, that's when they need to make a decision. Do you move him to the be on the active and then become the reserve pup list, but effectively he's
Hmm.
on the pup list at that point. And if he hits that on when they move to a 53-man roster, he misses the first 4 games. So that's them 4 games knocked out. He can't come back in the middle of that. He's out for 4 games. And that's just to make sure the player's got a decent amount of time to recover and they're not rushed back. And that would be nothing wrong with missing 4 weeks. It allows him just to get ready, because you need your great players for the run in at the end. Obviously, you can't lose them all for 17 weeks and then 18 onwards, you're ready to go. But it's one that there's no point rushing him back for the first 4 games if that's going to impact where he might be for the playoffs and towards the end of that season. So
Hmm.
it's one where my gut says start the season on the pup list, give him at least 4 weeks on the sideline, and then whenever he's ready to go, bring him off that. And it's one then at that point you can go, look, who's best between Foreman and Ford? We'll keep that one, get rid of the other one, and off we go, bring Chubb back in. So I would take it much slower. And I think that's probably the direction they're going. But if he's training, if he's cleared and practicing in training camp, he won't be able to go on
Yeah.
the pup list. You could potentially put him on IR if he tweaks something again, but then he's going to miss some time. That it's going to be interesting into how they do the roster gymnastics. And the weird thing is, if I was him, I wouldn't have given back as much money as he did. He gave back nearly 10 million and transferred it into incentives. That he could go down in training camp and he lose all that money. So it's one that
He's
there's a
betting.
delicate balancing act.
He's very much betting on himself. He is. I mean, just by that, I would think. When is the date where the Browns can designate? Is it the start of training camp, whether they put him on the pup or the IR?
So they wouldn't have to put on IR at that stage. But
Okay.
yeah, pup would be at that stage that
When they
I
go to the
believe it's the
Greenbrier.
start of training camp. They announced them all.
Okay. Okay, that's interesting, because that's a date to look for. I don't know the exact date of the training camp. I know it's the end of July, and they're going back to West Virginia. And have you ever been to the Greenbrier in West Virginia? Have you ever been
I've,
there?
I've never been to the great state of Ohio, let alone
No, it's in West Virginia. The Greenbrier is at
West
the
Virginia.
near West Virginia Virginia border. I've been there. I've had to go there for a company I worked for, from sales meetings. It is an amazing place. It is absolutely you just I mean this resort's beautiful. It's very expensive too. It's a very expensive, but I think the Haslam's have the money, so I think we're okay.
Go on,
Um,
Jimmy.
yeah, he'll keep paying the money. Great. Let me just say since you talked about Nick Chubb, so basically, if all goes well, he produces, he could get an extension in December, much like how Jack Conklin did. What do you think that would be the same road Amari Cooper takes?
So just to throw some numbers out there to give people an idea, firstly, on what those numbers might look like. I think his chance to get to the top end of the running back market's probably gone,
Yeah,
just because there's going to be doubt there, and as well, he's aging. If you're a running back and you're paying for a guy in the season where he turns 30, that's a part you're slightly concerned about. So that's there. So the high end would be Jacobs 12 million. The lower end sort of Derrick Henry's 8 million a year. I think you settle for that sort of 24 million over 3 years. And that's probably what they'll try and do. It could be a 2 year deal, but I think it'll probably be a three where they say, hey, we'll guarantee two of it, or we'll guarantee one and then some minor guarantees in the second. Worst case scenario though, I think he would still be back as long as he doesn't hang up his boots because he gets the end of this season and he's like, nah, I don't want to do it anymore. Then I think they would still bring him back and they'd be talking about 6-7 million for him, probably 6 million with a bit of incentives just to be the lead committee back. And that's
yeah,
kind of what this season's going to be. I think Nick Chubb's either retiring or coming back to the Cleveland Browns. They're the two most likely outcomes. I struggle to see a route where he wants to play and Cleveland isn't interested. They've got so much money from Jimmy Haslam. They can do some moves that other teams might be like, oh, we need to make a tough decision. What do we do? The Cleveland Browns are like, hey, Jimmy's spending. We'll roll with it.
yeah.
Um, and so I think it's Nick Chubb finding out, and we won't know that straight away. We'll need to see a whole season of it. Is he a lead back like he's been before, or is he just a guy that's going to take 40-50% of your sort of rushing snaps and he's going to be the lead in a committee? So either way is completely fine, but that's what they've got this season to find out.
Okay. And I asked about Cooper. Do you think they're
Yeah.
going to do the similar path? He's performing, but his injuries started piling up at the end of last year, if you remember.
I could see the Cooper stuff happening a lot earlier. So I've got an article on this next week. So next Thursday, keep an eye out.
Okay.
But I think they could go earlier. And the reason for that is they just didn't draft someone. I said if they drafted someone at pick 54, that's the point where you want to kick it to December and go, we drafted this guy at 54. If he comes along really well, you don't need to spend a load of money on Amari Cooper because you could have, if this
Mhm.
guy plays lights out, maybe Tillman takes a massive step forward or someone else and Judy's doing well, then you're like, do we need to designate over 20 million a year to this guy? Whereas they haven't done that. There's no one really on the roster that you're saying, hey, they're going to step up with Judy and be the guy. Hopefully, someone out of the Tillman, Bell, and Thrash in a year's time can
Mhm.
replace Moore, so you don't need to keep him. But your top two are pretty much set. So I could see June, July time. They open the checkbook, get Amari Cooper signed in for another extra 3 years. So that's 4 years in total. And if they can guarantee the 2024 season,
Mhm.
2025,
Mhm.
and then 6 and 7 make them team options, it puts them in a really nice spot. Whereas if someone really steps out in the next two
Mhm.
years, they can move on from him. If not, their top two are locked in. And Amari Cooper and Jerry Judy might seem like a lot if that's potentially 40 million between two wide receivers. But Justin Jefferson by himself's not going to be far off that 40 million.
No.
He's potentially going to be in the range of sort of 33-35 million just for one guy. So if you can get two guys for 40 million, you're doing pretty good work.
Yeah. Yeah, that is pretty good. I mean, I think they're ahead of the game. Personally, I'm just not just saying it as a fan. One last one. This is a quick question because you mentioned this before, where you could see Deshaun Watson restructuring that before the season starts and adding another void year at the end of his contract. That way, they could roll over to more savings. Do you still see that happening? That's my last question.
Yeah, I still expect the Deshaun Watson contract to get done. He needs to be in the building to sign that.
Mhm.
So it's one, and as well as his agent. His agent's got probably more important stuff to do at the moment. With if he's got rookie clients, needs to make sure all of their contracts get signed.
Mhm.
So it tends to be sort of June, July time, a lot more in July. Um, so I could certainly see the case where David Mulgeta flies in, they do the agreement and they just sign it. It'll probably get overhyped as, oh, Deshaun Watson's got an extension. In the grand scheme of it, it's one extra day, but it allows for a lot of salary cap manipulation. It could be one where Mulgeta doesn't want to be seen as giving Cleveland Browns an out, but if the Cleveland Browns sit there and go, look, we can spend an extra 80 million around Deshaun Watson by signing this one clause over the next 3 years,
Yeah,
Deshaun's camp's probably going to go, let's sign it because more talent's going to be around my player. And whether he's in Cleveland long term or go somewhere else, you'd rather have the best form of him rather than they're having to reduce spending because there's uncertainty around that contract.
that's great. Well, that's fantastic. I'll say that I just between me and you, like I said, I'm very optimistic about this season. We stay healthy, we should do very well. And go ahead.
When you're the most expensive roster in the NFL, there's no excuse.
No,
There is no
none
excuse
whatsoever.
that this team doesn't make the playoffs. Once you get to the playoffs, lucky pick, whatever happens, happens. But there should never be a world where we're not making the playoffs. And you'll get the time where the Chiefs lose Patrick Mahomes and then they don't make the playoffs. I can get that excuse because they don't have the level of resource and spending around the rest of the team as we do in Cleveland. So there should be no exception. If you get to 10 wins and don't make the playoffs, I'm cool with that as well. It's like very, very rare under the current format with 7 teams going in that you can get to 10 wins and don't make it. But get to 10 wins every season, probably make it to the playoffs at least 90% of the time, 95% of the time. And then luck be the case. If you then get Patrick Mahomes in the first game and lose, whatever. But you play playoff football enough times, you'll end up with a ring one day.
Well, luck is preparation meeting opportunity. I always believe that. So I think this team is prepared and I think they're taking advantage of opportunities. I'm optimistic. I'm looking forward to it. I'm a season ticket holder. I'll be at every home game this year. And I plan on being there. And I even told Paul Brown, I said, you're down in Cleveland. We're getting a beer. So he said, I'm not sure when he's coming across the pond. I was hoping for the game in London and Jacksonville, but against Jacksonville, but it didn't happen.
I wasn't because I'm away on honeymoon at that stage. So there was lots of talk that the Cleveland Browns were going to be in London. I was like, you could just imagine the Cleveland Browns playing in London and I'm
And
in Asia.
you're going to be out on your honeymoon. Well, congratulations on your future nuptials. Thank you for joining me. Thank you, everybody. This is the Burning River Browns Talk of the Fanatical Elves Network, a subsidiary of the Fans First Sports Network. Jack, thank you again. Check out Jack Duffin at Jack Duffin on Twitter and on the Orange and Brown Report. He has good stuff. Again, great. Thank you very much, sir. Have a great day. Thank you. All right. That was Jack Duffin. Good. Hey, to answer your comment, Drew in Brick City, was the Judy contract a reach? If you kind of listen to what Jack was saying, not really, because they're anticipating the market going up for receivers, where Justin Jefferson on his own would be the value of a Cooper and Jerry Judy contract. So I think it wasn't a reach. I think they believe Jerry Judy will be an excellent minimum number 2 receiver where he's at. Possibly they'll have a 1A, 1B with Cooper and Judy. And Cooper will probably be, after this season, maybe 2 more years on the team because by that point he'll be 32. So you got maybe 2 or 3 more years with him in place. So I wouldn't say the Judy contract was a reach. I think it's a projection of how they feel he's going to produce. Like if you said what Jack was saying, where we kind of agree what the front office philosophy of the Cleveland Browns has been, is to pay for the player they're going to get instead of paying for the player that they had. A lot of teams make that mistake. So it's almost like when you draft a player, you're projecting this player to produce for you at a certain level in a certain way. Not always are you right on that. I mean, heck, if you get half of your draft picks right, you have a great team. So that's true. That's a fact. And the Browns have done well in the draft lately. So thanks for the question there, Drew. I appreciate it. Anybody, I want to let you know I do appreciate the comments. I appreciate the messages. I appreciate the likes. Like, comment, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Fanatical Elves Network, subsidiary of the Fans First Sports Network. This is the Burning River Browns Talk. I'm Lou Marconi at El Marconi251 on Instagram, at El Marconi 1973 on X, just to complicate things. So just so you know, much appreciated, much obliged. Thank you all. Hey, I want you all to be safe tomorrow. Have a great, safe Memorial Day holiday, and I will be back on here again tomorrow night at 9:30. I want you to always remember, when the river burns, it burns brown and orange. Have a great night. Have a good Memorial Day.